Hello New World, and welcome to another build guide. Many of you asked about the tank builds you see in my raids and videos, so in this guide I'll answer all of your questions. Tanking in Gorgon is easier than you think. With the right team and the right build, you'll feel the raid going smoother than ever. Your main weapons for Gorgon will be the sword and the shield, paired with a great sword, and for the last boss you'll switch to a warhammer. I'll explain why, along with beginner gear and best recommendations you can use. Your primary weapon is the sword and shield. The best sword to use is the Hoplite longsword that comes with Transient Trend and Refreshing Move, and the best perk to put on it is Sundering Stacks. If you don't have that yet, you can farm the Taiyi longsword in Ebonscale. You want to have 2 tower shields for this raid. The best shields come with Sturdy and Fortifying Shield Rush. One needs Slash Shield Ward and the other Nature Shield Ward. The perfect one is the tall Dunebone shield that you can get from the worm, but you can also use the Hoplite tower shield and add protections to it. If you don't have access to these, check the market for any other tower shields with Slash or Nature Shield Wards. The gear score doesn't matter much here. You can even farm 6 to 5 shields like Portent or Girdle of Cap. Your secondary weapon is the Greatsword. Any Greatsword with energizing counter will work. You only use your Greatsword for taunting and defensive purposes, while staying mostly on sword and shield to provide your group with a leadership buff. Any Gorgon Greatsword with energizing counter is solid, and if possible, you can use the Hoplite or Dunebone versions. Alternatives like Serenity or Crescent's Wave are also good starting choices. For the last boss, you'll switch from the Greatsword to a Warhammer with Sundering Shockwave. The Dunebone Maul is a great option, or you can upgrade a Hoplite Warhammer. Alternatively, you can buy a Gorgon Warhammer or use the Azoth Crystal version. When it comes to gear, there is one perk that matters above all: Contagious Upheaval. This is a sword perk that increases your damage and transfers debuffs. Other optional perks include Fortifying Shield Rush if you don't already have it on your shield, Accelerated Resolve, and depending on your Warhammer, either Sundering Clear Out or Shockwave. For your artifact, you want to get the Void Dark Plate and upgrade it with Vital Synergy, which is an extremely important perk for tanking. It drops from Mutated Barnacles, and if you don't have it yet, you can use alternatives like the Unmoved, Survivor's Code, Keely's Gravity Gauntlets, or even no artifact at all. The best gear you can use overall are the Hoplite heavy pieces that come with Enchanted Ward and Health. If you don't have them, then start with Azoth Crystal heavy gear that has Enchanted Ward and Refreshing, or even faction gear with Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, and Health. For the boots, it's best to craft or buy Gorgon boots with Enchanted Ward and your preferred perks. You can often find lower priced crafted ones on the market as well. For jewelry, you don't need any artifacts. Starting with the amulet, you want 3 of them. One with strike protection, one with slash protection, and one with nature protection. You also want health on each. And for the third perk, you can choose either divine or empowered. Alternatives to this include Life Ring, Corrupt Amulet, or Azoth Battery. For strike protection, you can consider the Sporelight Amulet. For slash, the Soul Shroud, and for nature, you can go with Grove Light or You're a Beast. For your ring, aim for slash damage, hearty, and leeching. Privateer's Heirloom works as an alternative. For your earring, the important perk is Despised for holding aggro. Regenerating is also excellent for passive healing since you'll have a lot of HP. For the third perk, you can choose between Fortifying, Refreshing, or Empowering Toast. Your attributes are straightforward. You should use 350 Constitution and dump the rest into Strength. The 300 Constitution threshold is important because it gives you more grit uptime, while the 350 threshold boosts your defenses whenever grit is active. For your skill trees, the sword and shield setup should include Upheaval, Shield Rush, and Defender's Resolve. Upheaval is your main damage skill and helps lower the cooldown of your other perks. Shield Rush weakens enemies while boosting your armor, and Defender's Resolve increases your defenses while providing an AoE taunt. You'll also take the left side ultimate to give your team the leadership buff, boosting their damage. On the Greatsword, you'll mostly use it for utility since your focus is maximizing time on sword and shield. This means you'll spend less time in offensive stance and more in defensive stance. Calamity Counter is your main protection skill, blocking nearly everything and acting as an AoE taunt. With Energizing Counter, you can even use it while out of stamina. Roaring Rupture makes you uninterruptible while weakening enemies around you. With its final upgrade, you can push or pull enemies. Here, you want to use the pull, which requires you to be in offensive stance. This is where Relentless Rush comes in. Use it to dive between mobs, enter offensive stance, trigger Rupture to taunt and pull them in, then switch back to defensive stance, which allows you to block attacks while charging heavy hits. You'll usually deal 2 or 3 heavy attacks before swapping back to sword and shield. For the Warhammer, the goal is Grit and Rend. All its abilities come with Grit, and if you have the Sundering perks, all 3 abilities will also apply Rend. Shockwave is especially important since it applies Weaken. You want to carefully time your abilities to grit through Medusa's attacks and then swap back to sword and shield. For gems, put full onyxes on your gear and carnelians on your weapons. Run your Slash Protection Shield and Strike Amulet for Echidna, then the same shield with a Slash Amulet for Typhon, and finally swap both shield and amulet for Nature Protection for the last boss. This way you don't have to constantly swap gems whenever you run Gorgon. There are 3 things you must know as a tank. First, tanking doesn't mean surviving every single hit, and it doesn't mean blocking them all either. Learn the attack patterns and practice dodging and gritting. Dodging helps you avoid damage completely, while grit allows you to absorb the hit without losing stamina. Second, team composition matters. A good team makes everything easier. Having your teammates apply Weaken to the boss is critical for your survivability. You'll barely feel the attacks with your defensive stacked on top of the Weaken debuff. The best and easiest way to keep enemies weakened is to have a spear with enfeebling skewer and a Power Stone flail user on your team. Combined with your own weaken applications from Shield Rush and either Roaring Rupture or Shockwave, these debuffs make a massive difference. Finally, positioning is important. As a tank, it's your job to hold aggro and face enemies toward you, giving your teammates the chance to attack from behind. This is especially important against trade bosses. Keep the boss in place and hold your ground because nobody likes a tank that runs around too much. With proper gear, weakened enemies, and smart use of dodges and grit, you'll be able to hold aggro steadily and make the fight smooth for your entire team. Without these, you'll feel threatened, take more damage, and end up running around waiting for heals, which causes problems for everyone. The reason you use Greatsword for the first 2 bosses and switch to the Warhammer for the last one comes down to group strategy. Most groups play melee on the first 2 bosses and then switch to ranged on the final boss. For the first 2 bosses, you'll usually have a rend bot lowering the boss's armor. This lets you play the Greatsword, which provides more defensive abilities and requires less healing. On the final boss, most teams switch to ranged, which means you may lose your rend bot. The upside is that you'll receive more heals since the healer is also ranged. This is when you switch to the Warhammer to compensate for the missing rend. With enough nature protection, you can comfortably stand in the ooze for a while, and with enough physical protection, you'll manage the boss's direct attacks. Now you know the strongest build for tanking in Gorgon. With enough practice and experience, you can push it further by switching to medium gear, lowering your constitution, or even trying light armor. Whatever you decide, the perks, gems, and protections remain the same. If you need a more detailed explanation about the boss's attack patterns, check out my Gorgon guide where I cover everything in detail. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions about other builds, let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. IchBinAyoub.